All right, traders, this has been the video you've been waiting for, an updated market analysis on SPY. I'm going to be giving you an in-depth price action analysis on where SPY is currently heading. We're going to do an in-depth short-term analysis on when to be short biased, when to be bearish, and when to be long biased, when to be bullish. We're also going to do a further in-depth analysis on where I see SPY heading towards the end of September. So for those of you who are subscribed to this channel, you are well aware that I did end up timing this pullback, this potential market crash, 100% spot on. Go back and watch the beginning of this series on my SPY put options. I'm currently up a little bit over 100% on those put options. But in terms of the series, go back and watch. You will learn and get a much better understanding on how this strategy works. In terms of the start of the series ended up starting right here. I gave out my plan in terms of buying the SPY put options, and then I showed in real time my position of my SPY put options that I ended up purchasing on the day SPY formed its all-time high on September 2nd. So let's get into the updated analysis. So the question is this a bull trap? Did the bulls just get trapped for the short term, or is this them officially coming back to squeeze the bears, to trap the bears and push for another new all-time high? Because if you've been studying this trend for SPY, SPY has been consistently forming new all-time highs. And whenever it has a pullback throughout the past year, it tends to turn those previous all-time highs, previous key resistance levels into support levels. Then it ramps back up and pushes, for new all-time highs. For example, in terms of, what it is that I'm talking about, you can see right here, SPY has a nice pullback from the 445 range, and then it has that nice sell-off going back to 436, but then it pushes back up, turns that key resistance level right around here in the mid 440s, right around here in the mid 440s into a support level and blast off for new all-time highs. And it has been consistently doing this for, over a year straight. So the question is today's price action, because we did get that confirmation of SPY turning, it had a strong attempt and a really strong push into the close here. Is that a bullish confirmation? Is this the confirmation, or is this going to be a fake out, right? Because as you can see, we have this key resistance level right here towards this 445, 446 range. We also have a gap. As you can see right here, there's a gap that has been waiting to be filled. We discussed this at 446.26, and this was at that key resistance level before SPY blasted off and hit those new all-time highs, right? Is this its bullish confirmation, where it's simply pulling back towards these previous all-time highs to turn that into a support? Then it's going to be blasting off into new all-time highs? Or is September 2020 repeating itself? If we go back historically, the market has had its worst month in September. And if we go back in terms of SPY, you can see right here, in terms of its massive sell-off, it dropped over 8% from its all-time highs back in the beginning of September 2nd up until September 24th. It dropped a little bit over 8%, right? And as of now, from its all-time highs, SPY is only down about 1.5 to 2%. So if that were to repeat itself, we still have so much more downside potential. In terms of downside potential, by the end of the month, we can potentially see $420 to $430 on SPY if this is going to be a fake out. So as of now, the bulls might be celebrating, but let's get into this, guys. Let's get into this in-depth analysis. So in terms of the history, this is what I'm doing, purely basing this off of history, plus, in terms of things to add on, I'm not going to be going over the fundamentals and all the bad news that's coming out and stuff like that with inflation and all of the other news. But in terms of this, obviously it's a lot more inflated. It's a lot more overbought for the short term. In terms of mid-term to long term, obviously I'm bullish and I cannot wait to buy calls on when I believe it's a great time to buy calls on the dip. But in terms of confirmation, let's get right into it. So as you can see, let's do a side-by-side comparison, right? We're comparing the current market conditions to the previous market conditions of last year. And as of now, it's doing a very, very good job of history trying to repeat itself. So let's take a look right here. So you can see SPY ends up forming a new all-time high on September 2nd, forms a new all-time high on September 2nd, and then it starts to pull back, and then it starts to pull back, right? So what I wanted to kind of show you is history doesn't repeat itself to an exact T, but I wanted to keep the focus on these three candles. So in terms of confirmations, this went from 358 all the way down to 332. So it's not crashing as quickly as it did in terms of, last year of September. One of the reasons is the volume is a lot lighter, but in terms of pattern wise, study, these three big red candles, right? And then these three big red candles, right? So we are getting some sort of confirmation. So here's what I think we're going to see happen, right? So we have this nice pullback, these three big red candles. We have this nice pullback, these three, somewhat big red candles. And then in terms of confirmation, I think we're going to see a channel start to develop. And this channel that is in process of developing, it's going to tell us whether the bulls are in control and we're going to see a push for new all-time highs, and this was simply just a small pullback to adjust itself to turn this previous high into support, or it's going to be able to tell us that we are due for that market crash, and then SPY will be on track to dip into the 435 range, right? So let's get into this, channel, into this analysis. We're going to call our key level right here. This is a gap fill level. We're going to call it $446, right? 446 to 446.26. That's going to be our key support level. If SPY maintains above this level, we are going to see an overall trading range in terms of healthy price action for SPY. The bulls are going to need to hold up 446. That's key. And they need to turn $449 into a support level. So this is going to be your key range. If you see SPY doing a good job of holding up at this support and doing a good job of attempting of breaking out through this, resistance and turning that into support, then we're going to be on track to retest those new all-time highs and potentially break them, right? And the bulls are really going to start to take control. Now, in terms of bears taking control and in terms of things getting extremely ugly, things are going to get extremely ugly if the bears can turn this key resistance level into a resistance level, right? So if you see a crack below this 446 level and then it bounces back up, and those, new resistance, if you see it turn into resistance at this 446 or even lower, which is more bearish, then we're going to be on track to go towards 440. And then I think that's when bears really start to take control. And then within the week of that happening, if that does happen, we're going to be on track to go to 436, this support level right here, right? So that is what it is that I would look for on SPY. I personally think in terms of like the history and in terms of what I'm looking at, I currently think we're sitting right around here. I think we're going to see some bounces back and forth into a new channel. So if it's going to be a lower channel, in terms of the lower channel, it would be, towards 446 to 449. In between that, if it's bouncing around this area and it's failing to turn 449 into support, it's really going to start to crack this 446 level, and then we'll be on track for $440. So that's the key price action. That's the key, man. For this to be a strong comeback, it needs to hold 446, and for them to really trap the bears, they need to turn 449 into a support level, and it needs to happen quickly. Otherwise, I think we're going to be on track for 440, and if that does happen, where 446 turns into resistance, and then we get that nice pullback to 444, I genuinely believe we're really going to start to see a market crash where SPY drops, potentially 7 to 10%, like 6 to 10% from its all-time high. As of now, it's down about 1.5 to 2%. So yeah, that's what it is that I'm looking for, and this is going to take time to play out. Looking, throughout the history, looking throughout this chart, SPY ended up bottoming towards the end of the month on September 24th. Then it pushed back up and ramped for new all-time highs once again. So I think personally, this is an early confirmation to buy. I don't think this is a strong confirmation yet. I think we're going to need to see a couple days of price action. And then for a really strong, valid confirmation, we need to see this holding strong above 446, and 449 needs to turn it into support. Otherwise, if 449 can't turn into support, here's how I'm viewing this chart. I'm viewing this as, SPY is on a clear downtrend, and it's turning, previous support right here, 449, into a resistance level, which therefore it will head back towards 446, and it will simply downtrend and start to crash towards 440. So those are my opinions on it. Like I said, I just think it's a bit too early to confirm that, the bulls have taken full control. But in terms of today, bears shown full strength for the entire day up until the close. And then that's when the bulls came back. So for tomorrow, that's what I would look for. 446 needs to hold up. They can do a good job of doing that. Then 449 is the next level. 449 can turn into support. We pushed 450s. bulls are in complete control, and I think it's going to be potentially no longer a market crash. But in terms of right now, I do believe the bears are still in control of this move. So yeah, I think SPY personally though is going to be up tomorrow. I think it's going to be, pushing back up towards this 449-ish level. And then the question from there is if they can turn into support. If not, then the bears remain still in control and it's going to be a hold for puts. So as of now, I think we're just going to have a sideways, choppy price channel. I think that's what's going to happen, sideways in between this range. And the real question is, if this turns into support, bulls are in complete control. They're going to push for new all-time highs again. If this turns into resistance, 449, bears are in control and we'll be on track for 440. So your key levels are going to be 446 to 449. And we'll see how the bulls react to this confirmation, in terms of what it's doing now, in terms of after hours. Let's see. So yeah, we're getting that push back up towards 447. So yeah, it does look like we're going to be heading, like I said, I think we're going to head back towards 449, 450, but they have to turn into support. Otherwise, it could potentially be a fake out. So as of now, that's where I think we're standing. I think we're going to be trading in between this range of 446 to 449. And I think we're going to see some green. I think some green is coming ahead for the short term. But in terms of this, market crash and this downtrend confirmation, the bears are still in control from a macro perspective, in my point of view. My views will change in terms of going from bearish to bullish if they could turn 449 to 450 into a strong support level. As of now, though, it is a resistance level. So yeah, that's my thoughts on SPY, and we'll see how it reacts towards this trading. Like I said, I think we're in this stage right now where it's just going to have this choppy price channel in between. And then if we get that fake out reaction, if we get some bearish confirmations around 449, 450 on the one-day candle, some bearish candlesticks, then I think we're really going to start to crack 445 and head towards 440. So yeah, we'll see how it reacts.